Cordoba's embrace, a stoic's beginning. The last light of day settles over the hills of Cordoba like a gentle hand smoothing silk. Orange bleeds into purple, purple melts into gold, and the ancient olive trees catch the dying sun in their silver-green leaves, shimmering like scattered coins across the Spanish countryside. You can almost hear the whisper of evening wind through those branches, carrying with it the scent of wild herbs and the distant promise of night's embrace. Here, in this tranquil valley where the Guadalquivir River curves like a lover's arm around the city, a child was born who would one day teach emperors how to face their darkest hours. But tonight, we're not concerned with emperors or their troubles. Tonight, we're simply here, in this moment of perfect peace, learning what it means to truly see the beauty that surrounds us before it fades. Lucius Annaeus Seneca entered this world around 4 BCE, when Augustus still ruled Rome and the empire stretched its golden fingers across the known world. But Rome felt very far away from these rolling hills. Here in Cordoba, life moved with the rhythm of seasons rather than the drumbeat of conquest. The morning brought the sound of shepherds calling to their flocks. The afternoon carried the gentle splash of women washing clothes in the river. And evening brought this daily miracle of light and shadow dancing across the landscape. Seneca's father was a man of words, a teacher of rhetoric who understood the power of language to move hearts and change minds. His mother, Helvia, possessed the kind of quiet strength that holds families together through storms both literal and metaphorical. They were comfortable, educated, respected in their community, but not so wealthy or powerful that young Seneca grew up believing the world owed him anything. This matters more than you might think, because it was here, in this place of natural beauty and modest circumstances, that Seneca first learned to notice. Really notice. The extraordinary hiding within the ordinary. Picture him as a boy, perhaps 8 or 9 years old, sitting on a low stone wall as the sun sets behind the olive groves. His legs swing freely, not quite long enough to touch the ground. His dark eyes take in everything, the way the light catches in a spider's web stretched between 2 branches, the distant sound of his mother's laughter floating from the house, the warmth of the stone beneath him that will soon give way to evening's cool touch. He doesn't know it yet, but he's practicing something that will become the foundation of everything he'll later teach. He's learning to be present, to sink fully into this moment, without rushing toward the next one, without mourning the loss of the one that just passed. The Stoics had a name for this practice, though young Seneca wouldn't encounter their teachings for several years yet. They called it prosoche, a kind of continuous attention to the present moment, not the scattered, anxious attention we're so familiar with today, constantly pulled between past regrets and future worries, but a gentle, focused awareness that says, this, right now. This is where life is actually happening. Watch how the light continues to change as we sit here with him. The orange has deepened to amber now, and the first stars are beginning to appear in the darkening sky. A farmhouse in the distance glows with warm lamplight, and you can almost imagine the family inside gathering for their evening meal. The simple pleasure of bread broken together, stories shared, the day's work set aside for tomorrow's concerns. This is what Seneca absorbed in those early years. Not just the beauty of such moments, but their fragility. The sun sets every day, but no 2 sunsets are exactly alike. The light that dances across these hills tonight will never come again in precisely this way. The warmth under his small hands, the particular quality of the evening air, the exact pattern of shadows and golden patches across the valley floor, all of it is unrepeatable. And perhaps this is where his later wisdom began to take root, in the recognition that everything we love, everything we depend on, everything that brings us joy or comfort, all of it is temporary, not in a way that should make us sad or anxious, but in a way that should make us pay attention. Really pay attention. The Stoics would eventually teach him that this recognition, this clear-eyed acceptance of impermanence, is not a source of despair, but of incredible freedom. When we truly understand that nothing lasts forever, we stop taking the good moments for granted. We stop assuming that the people we love will always be there, that our health will always hold, that our circumstances will always remain comfortable and familiar. But again, young Seneca doesn't know any of this yet. He's simply a boy watching the day transform into night, feeling something shift inside him that he can't quite name. A recognition, perhaps, that he's witnessing something sacred, that the ordinary world is shot through with beauty if we just slow down enough to see it. The olive trees have gone dark now, their daytime silver muted to charcoal gray. But that distant farmhouse still glows, a steady beacon in the gathering dusk. And maybe this image stays with him as he finally slides down from the wall and makes his way home. This sense that even in darkness, there are points of light. Even in uncertainty, there are places of warmth and welcome. His mother, Helvia, calls to him from the doorway. Her voice carries easily across the evening air, warm with affection and the promise of supper waiting. As he walks toward that welcoming light, his bare feet finding their way along the familiar path, he's storing up something precious without even knowing it. He's learning that home isn't just a place. It's a feeling, a sense of belonging, of being known and loved exactly as you are. This feeling, this deep sense of security and connection, will become his anchor in the storms ahead. Because storms are coming, though he can't see them yet. Political upheavals that will shake the empire, personal losses that will test every philosophical principle he'll ever learn. Exile to a harsh island where the beauty of Cordoba will seem like something from another lifetime. But tonight, there are no storms on the horizon. Tonight, there is simply this: the peaceful conclusion of another day in a place where a future philosopher is learning, without knowing it, the most important lesson he'll ever teach. That happiness isn't found in chasing after bigger, better, more impressive experiences. It's found in sinking deeply into whatever this moment offers, with gratitude for its gifts and acceptance of its limits. As we prepare to follow Seneca's journey from this tranquil valley into the wider world, let yourself settle more deeply into your own present moment. Feel the weight of your body against whatever supports you. Notice the temperature of the air around you, the quality of light or darkness in your space. Like that boy on the stone wall, you're surrounded by small miracles. The steady rhythm of your breathing, the remarkable fact that you're here at all, the way consciousness allows you to witness and appreciate the world around you. The ancient Stoics believed that wisdom begins with this simple practice, learning to see clearly what is actually here, right now, without the filters of what we wish were different or fear might change. And perhaps that's exactly what we need tonight. Not answers to all our questions, not solutions to all our problems, but simply this gentle return to presence, this quiet appreciation for the unrepeatable gift of this moment. The hills of Cordoba have settled into full darkness now, but the stars above shine with the same light that guided Seneca through his early years, and somewhere in that continuity, that connection across time and space, we find our own invitation to begin. Rome beckons, education and influence, to turn these pages of history together, to discover what this ancient teacher might whisper to our modern hearts. The journey from Cordoba to Rome was not merely a change of geography. It was a passage between worlds. Picture, if you will, the dust settling from traveling sandals as young Seneca first glimpsed the eternal city rising before him. The marble gleamed white against the Mediterranean sky, and the sounds were unlike anything his provincial ears had ever known. merchants calling their wares in a dozen languages, the clip-clop of horses on stone, the distant murmur of the forum where the fate of empires was decided daily. But it wasn't the spectacle that drew him. It was the promise of knowledge, the promise of understanding. And so we find ourselves following his footsteps, not to the grand amphitheaters or the glittering palaces, but to a quieter sanctuary, the library. Imagine stepping across that threshold with him. The heavy wooden door closes behind you with a soft thud, and suddenly the chaos of Rome feels like a distant dream. Here, in this sacred space, oil lamps flicker gently along the walls, casting dancing shadows across row upon row of scrolls. The air is thick, almost tangible, with the scent of papyrus and beeswax, of ancient wisdom preserved in careful script. Your fingers might trace the edge of a simple wooden table that stands in the center of this sanctuary. Upon it rests a stylus and wax tablet, tools of learning, instruments of transformation. How many thoughts have been captured here? How many questions posed? How many answers slowly, patiently discovered? This is where Seneca came to prepare himself, not just for examinations or rhetorical contests, but for life itself. And perhaps there's something deeply comforting about that image. This young man, barely out of boyhood, understanding instinctively that true education isn't about accumulating facts like coins in a purse. It's about cultivating the inner strength to meet whatever storms may come. He would sit here for hours, the lamplight steady on his focused face, reading the works of earlier Stoics. Chrysippus, with his intricate logic, Epictetus, who knew suffering intimately and found freedom within it. Each scroll was a conversation across time, each passage a hand extended from the past to guide him forward. But Rome demanded more than contemplation. The city was a living organism, pulsing with ambition and opportunity. Young men of Seneca's background were expected to enter public life, to climb the cursus honorum, that ladder of political advancement that led to power and prestige. And so, even as he nourished his soul with philosophy, he began to train his voice for the courts, his mind for the intricate dance of Roman politics. Can you hear the echo of his first speeches in the law courts? The careful modulation of his voice as he learned to persuade, to advocate, to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman justice. There was talent there. Real talent. A gift for language that could move hearts and change minds. But even then, even in those early victories, perhaps he sensed the shadow that such gifts might cast. The Romans had a saying, "Tall poppies are the first to be cut down." Excellence, particularly in the realm of words and ideas, could be as dangerous as it was valuable. The very skills that brought success could also bring unwanted attention from those who held ultimate power. And in Rome, that power rested increasingly in the hands of one man, the emperor. But these concerns were still whispers in the future, distant thunder on a clear day. For now, there was learning to be done, connections to be made, a career to be built. Seneca moved through Rome's social circles with growing confidence, his reputation as both philosopher and orator beginning to take root. He attracted students, patrons, friends who valued his unique combination of intellectual depth and practical wisdom. Yet always, he returned to these quiet moments, to the library with its patient scrolls, to the gentle flicker of lamplight on ancient words. Here he could set down the masks that Roman society demanded: the ambitious young lawyer, the rising political star, the charming dinner guest. Here he could simply be a student of life, wrestling with the eternal questions that no amount of worldly success could answer. What is the good life? How should we face suffering? What do we owe to others, and what do we owe to ourselves? These questions didn't have simple answers. They had to be lived into, day by day, choice by choice, breath by breath. And perhaps that's why this image speaks so gently to our own tired hearts tonight. In a world that demands constant performance, constant optimization, constant growth, there's something deeply restful about this picture of a young man simply sitting with wisdom, letting it settle into his bones like warmth from a fire. He wasn't rushing, wasn't forcing, wasn't trying to become someone other than who he was meant to be. He was preparing, yes, but preparing the way a tree prepares for winter, drawing strength deep into its roots, trusting in the slow, patient work of growth. The wax tablet before him might hold notes on a legal case, or thoughts about virtue, or perhaps just the simple observation that this moment, this breath, this gentle dance of lamplight and shadow is enough, is complete, is exactly what it needs to be. Outside these walls, Rome continued its eternal restlessness. Senators schemed, merchants bargained, citizens worried about grain supplies and gladiatorial games. But here, in this pocket of peace, time moved differently. Here the urgent gave way to the important, the loud gave way to the lasting. And somewhere in that shift, somewhere in that gentle settling into presence and patience, we might find our own invitation. Not to solve all our problems tonight, not to plan every detail of tomorrow, but simply to rest in this moment of learning, of growing, of becoming who we're meant to be. The lamp burns steady, the wisdom waits, and all is well. The courtyard of contemplation, finding solace. The morning light filters through the narrow windows of Seneca's modest chambers, and already the sounds of Rome are awakening. The distant calls of merchants, the clip-clop of horses on stone, the gentle murmur of a city stirring to life. But before the day claims him, before the demands and decisions, an endless stream of visitors. Seneca has learned to claim something for himself. He rises quietly, wraps his simple toga around his shoulders, and makes his way through the corridors of his home to a place that has become sacred to him. A small courtyard garden tucked away from the main thoroughfares, where the noise of the world seems to soften and settle. Picture this space with me, this refuge he has created. A modest courtyard, perhaps 20 paces across, with walls of warm stone that catch and hold the morning light. In the center, a simple fountain, not grand or elaborate, but perfectly proportioned, sending up a gentle spray of water that catches the sunlight and scatters it in tiny rainbows. Around the fountain, he has arranged the garden with careful attention, not for show, but for peace. Ferns unfurl their delicate fronds in the shadier corners. Ivy climbs the walls with patient persistence. Small flowering plants, lavender and rosemary, jasmine and mint, release their fragrances into the warming air. The sound of the water is constant, but never intrusive, a gentle rhythm that seems to slow the pulse, to remind the mind that not everything must rush, not everything must strain. Here, in this small sanctuary, Seneca begins each day with what he calls his practice of gratitude, a simple ritual that will serve him well in the years to come, when gratitude becomes not just a luxury, but a lifeline. He settles on a stone bench beside the fountain, closes his eyes, and begins to notice, really notice, what surrounds him. The warmth of the sun on his face, still gentle in these early hours, promising, but not yet demanding. He feels grateful for this warmth, for the way it seems to dissolve the stiffness of sleep and invite the body back into wakefulness. The sound of the water, each droplet falling back into the pool with its own small music. He feels grateful for this sound, for the way it creates a boundary between this space and the urgent world beyond. The fragrance of the herbs, rising on the morning air, complex and layering, the sharp clarity of rosemary, the soothing sweetness of lavender. He breathes deeply and feels grateful for this breath, for the way the body knows how to draw in exactly what it needs. But Seneca's gratitude goes deeper than these immediate pleasures, deeper than what the senses can touch. He thinks of his teachers, the patient philosophers who shared their wisdom not for glory but for love of truth. He feels grateful for their generosity, for the way wisdom can be passed from one hand to another, like a flame that loses nothing in the giving. He thinks of his family, his father's steady presence, his mother's quiet strength. He feels grateful for their example, for the way love can shape a life even when we're not aware of its influence. He thinks of the books that line his study, the scrolls and tablets that hold the thoughts of minds he will never meet, but whose insights have become part of his own understanding. He feels grateful for this inheritance, for the way knowledge can travel across centuries and still arrive fresh and vital. And then, perhaps most importantly, he allows himself to feel grateful for the challenges that await him. Not because he enjoys difficulty, but because he is beginning to understand something profound about the nature of growth. The fountain before him offers a perfect metaphor. The water rises from the depths, meets the resistance of gravity, and falls back down, only to rise again. Each cycle makes the water cleaner, clearer, more refreshing. The resistance isn't the enemy of the water's beauty. It's the very thing that creates it. In the same way, Seneca is learning to see his future challenges not as obstacles to his peace, but as opportunities for his character to become clearer, stronger, more genuinely helpful to others. The political pressures that will test his integrity, the personal losses that will challenge his equanimity, the moments of doubt that will require him to choose again and again what kind of person he wants to be. All of this, he is beginning to understand, is not separate from his spiritual practice, but the very arena where that practice will prove its worth. As the sun climbs higher and the day begins to call more insistently, Seneca rises from his bench. But he doesn't leave the courtyard immediately. Instead, he walks slowly around the fountain, letting his fingers trail in the cool water, taking one last moment to absorb the peace of this place. He knows that in a few hours he may be frustrated by a difficult negotiation, overwhelmed by competing demands, tempted to react with anger or impatience or despair. But he also knows that this moment, this feeling of gratitude and centeredness, doesn't disappear when he leaves the courtyard. It becomes part of him, a resource he can draw upon when the day grows difficult. He has learned to think of these morning moments not as an escape from life, but as a preparation for life. The way a musician practices scales not to avoid the complexity of real music, but to be ready for it when it comes. And so he makes his way back through the corridors of his home, carrying with him the sound of the fountain, the fragrance of the herbs, the feeling of sunlight on stone. Carrying with him, most of all, the deep sense of gratitude that has the power to transform even the most challenging day into an opportunity for growth. The courtyard remains, peaceful and patient, ready to welcome him back when evening falls and the day's work is done. Ready to remind him again and again that beneath all the noise and urgency of the world, there is always this quiet place where wisdom grows, where gratitude flows, where the heart remembers what it means to be truly alive. The fountain continues its gentle music, the plants continue their patient growing, and all is well. Echoes of wisdom, the philosopher's gaze. Years pass like seasons, each one teaching its own lessons. Each one adding another layer to the philosopher's understanding. And somewhere in the quiet halls of memory, where wisdom gathers like dust on ancient shelves, there stands a weathered stone bust, a silent witness to all the thoughts that have been thought, all the truths that have been discovered, all the peace that has been found. The stone face gazes outward with eyes that have seen centuries pass. Moss growing soft and green along the carved cheekbones, shadows playing across features worn smooth by time. There is something eternal in that expression, something that speaks of deep contemplation and hard-won wisdom, something that whispers of all the souls who have sat in quiet places, seeking answers to life's most persistent questions. This is how Seneca appears now in our story. No longer the young man in the courtyard garden, but the seasoned philosopher whose thoughts have been tested by experience. His hair has grown silver. His hands show the marks of years, but his eyes hold that same quality we see in the ancient bust, that look of someone who has learned to see clearly, who has discovered what truly matters and what does not. He sits now in his study as evening light filters through tall windows, scrolls and tablets scattered across his wooden desk like fallen leaves. The day's work is nearly done. The letters written, the students taught, the administrative duties fulfilled. But this quiet hour, this is when the real work begins, the work of understanding, of accepting, of finding peace with what is. His fingers trace the edge of a piece of parchment as he considers the letter he has just finished writing. It is addressed to a friend who is struggling, someone caught in the storm of circumstances beyond their control. The words he has written are simple but profound, born from years of his own struggling, his own learning to let go. "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," he has written, the ink still wet on the page. "The mind that cannot find peace within itself will find chaos everywhere it goes." These are not just words to him. They are lived truths, carved into his understanding through seasons of difficulty, through exile and return, through loss and discovery, through all the countless moments when he had to choose between resistance and acceptance, between fighting what is and finding wisdom within it. The shadows grow longer in his study, and in that gentle dimming of the day there is a lesson too. Everything changes, everything passes, and in this passing there is not tragedy but natural order. The day does not mourn its ending. The season does not resist its transition. Only we humans struggle against the flow of time. Only we fight the very changes that bring growth and wisdom. He remembers a conversation from earlier in the week. A young student, eager and anxious, asking how to find happiness in an uncertain world. The question hung in the air between them like incense, heavy with longing and confusion, and Seneca had smiled, not with condescension, but with recognition. He had asked that same question once, in different words perhaps, but with the same desperate hope for a simple answer. Happiness, he had told the student, is not found in controlling what happens to us. It is found in controlling how we respond to what happens to us. The student's face had shown that familiar mixture of understanding and frustration, the look of someone who grasps a truth intellectually but has not yet learned to live it. Seneca remembers that feeling well, the gap between knowing and being, between understanding a principle and embodying it. This is why the stone bust speaks so clearly to him now, why its weathered features seem to hold such profound peace. Wisdom is not something we acquire all at once. It is something we grow into slowly, like moss covering stone. Each difficulty we face, each moment we choose acceptance over resistance, each time we find our center in the midst of chaos, adds another layer to our understanding. The evening air carries the scent of jasmine through his window, and with it comes a memory of his mother's garden in Cordoba. How simple everything had seemed then, how clear the boundaries between right and wrong, between success and failure, between happiness and sorrow. But life, he has learned, is not interested in our simple categories. It flows like water around and through them, creating something far more complex and beautiful than our young minds could have imagined. He thinks of all the things he once believed he needed to be happy: wealth that could be lost, positions that could be taken away, approval that could be withdrawn. And then he thinks of what he has learned to value instead. The quiet strength that comes from within, the peace that no external circumstance can disturb, the wisdom that grows deeper with each passing season. These are the true treasures, the ones that cannot be stolen or destroyed. They are built not through accumulation but through letting go, not through grasping but through opening, not through controlling but through accepting what cannot be changed and focusing our energy on what can be. The stone bust in his memory seems to nod in agreement, its ancient eyes holding secrets that each generation must discover for themselves. There is no shortcut to wisdom, no way to inherit understanding without living it. Each soul must walk its own path through confusion to clarity, through struggle to acceptance, through the noise of the world to the quiet place within where truth resides. As full darkness settles over the city, Seneca sets down his pen and closes his eyes. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own opportunities to practice what he teaches. But tonight, in this moment, there is only peace. The peace that comes from knowing that whatever tomorrow holds, he has within himself everything he needs to meet it with wisdom and grace. The weathered stone of memory, the growing moss of experience, the patient eyes of hard-won understanding. All of it settles into quiet acceptance of what is and what will be. Dawn's Reflections, a Stoic's Journal. The first pale light of dawn filters through the narrow window, casting gentle shadows across the simple wooden desk where Seneca sits in quiet contemplation. The city beyond is just beginning to stir, but here, in this small chamber, there is only the soft scratch of quill against parchment and the steady rhythm of a mind examining itself. This is his most sacred time, these precious moments before the world awakens and demands his attention, before the letters arrive, before the meetings begin, before he must once again step into the role that others expect him to play. Here, in the growing light of morning, he belongs only to himself and to the practice that has sustained him through decades of triumph and exile. The scroll before him bears witness to his thoughts, not the polished philosophy he will share with others, but the raw honesty of a soul in conversation with itself. "What did I do well yesterday?" he writes. "Where did I fall short of my own ideals? What lessons did the day teach me about myself, about others, about the nature of this brief existence we share?" The questions are simple, but the practice of asking them, of truly examining the contents of his own heart, this is where wisdom begins, not in the grand pronouncements or the clever arguments, but in the quiet courage to see himself clearly, without the flattering lies we tell ourselves when no one else is watching. He dips his quill again, the ink flowing like liquid thought onto the waiting parchment. "I noticed my impatience with Marcus today," he writes, "when he struggled to understand a concept that seems simple to me. I forgot, for a moment, that we all learn at our own pace, that my understanding came only through years of mistakes and false starts. The admission brings no shame, only a gentle recognition. This is not about perfection. It never was. It is about the willingness to keep looking, to keep questioning, to treat each day as both teacher and student. The Stoic path is not about becoming invulnerable. It is about becoming honest, about learning to see our reactions, our fears, our hopes, with the same clear-eyed compassion we might offer a dear friend. Outside the window, the sky deepens from gray to pale gold, and Seneca pauses in his writing to watch the transformation. Even the light teaches patience, he thinks. It does not rush to banish the darkness. It simply arrives, moment by moment, until what seemed impossible in the depths of night becomes the natural order of morning. "What am I grateful for?" he continues. The familiar question that ends each morning's reflection. His quill moves slowly, thoughtfully, as he considers not just the obvious blessings, but the hidden gifts that yesterday offered, for the letter that challenged my thinking, for the moment of doubt that reminded me I am still learning, for the ache in my back that tells me I am still here, still breathing, still given another day to practice being human. The practice of gratitude, he has learned, is not about denying life's difficulties, but about training the mind to see the full picture, to notice what sustains us even in the midst of what troubles us, like a gardener who sees both the weeds and the flowers, both the drought and the rain, understanding that all of it, somehow, serves the greater purpose of growth. He sets down his quill for a moment, flexing fingers that have grown stiff with age, and looks around the simple room that has become his sanctuary. The desk, worn smooth by years of morning reflections, the window that frames each day's beginning, the shelf of scrolls that hold not answers, but better questions. This is where he comes to remember who he is beneath all the roles he plays, beneath all the expectations others place upon him. The unexamined life, he murmurs to himself, remembering the words of the ancient Greek philosophers who lit his path, is not worth living. But the examined life, that requires a different kind of courage. The courage to sit with yourself in the growing light, to ask the questions that matter, to write down the truths you would rather avoid. He picks up his quill again, feeling the familiar weight of it in his hand, and continues his morning conversation with himself. Where did I try to control what was beyond my influence? He writes. Where did I waste energy fighting reality instead of working with it? Where did I forget that my peace comes not from what happens to me, but from how I choose to respond? The questions flow like water, finding its level, natural, necessary, cleansing. This is not self-criticism, though it might look like that to someone watching from the outside. This is self-cultivation, the patient tending of the inner garden where wisdom grows slowly, season by season, through the simple practice of paying attention. The light has grown stronger now, painting the walls with the warm gold of full sunrise, and Seneca can hear the first sounds of the city awakening, footsteps on stone, the distant call of merchants, the everyday symphony of human life beginning another day. Soon he will join that symphony, will step into the world and offer what service he can. But first, this quiet accounting, this gentle examination of the soul, this daily practice of becoming more fully himself. He writes one final line, the words flowing with the certainty of long practice. Today I will remember that my thoughts are mine to choose, my responses are mine to shape, and my peace is mine to cultivate, regardless of what storms may come. The scroll lies open on the desk, bearing witness to another morning's honest reflection, another day's commitment to the examined life, and in that simple practice, in that daily return to self-awareness, lies a strength that no external force can touch, a peace that belongs entirely and forever to the one who chooses to cultivate it. Bathing in tranquility, a moment of release, as the morning light grows stronger, Seneca sets aside his scroll and rises from his desk. The day's obligations await. But first, there is another practice, one equally essential to the philosopher's way of life. He makes his way through the villa's corridors, past servants already busy with their morning tasks, toward a destination that speaks to wisdom's understanding of human nature. For Seneca knows, as all true philosophers must learn, that the mind cannot be tended without also caring for the vessel that houses it. The Roman bathhouse welcomes him with its familiar embrace, a sanctuary where steam rises like incense, and the very air seems to whisper of release. Here, in the caldarium. Marble gleams softly through veils of mist, and the gentle sound of water lapping against stone creates a rhythm as old as civilization itself. Seneca settles onto the warm marble bench, feeling the heat seep slowly into muscles that have carried the weight of court intrigue, of philosophical discourse, of the endless demands that come with living fully in the world. The steam envelops him like a gentle cloud, and for this moment, there is nothing to prove, nothing to achieve, nowhere else to be. The wise person, he has written, knows when to engage and when to withdraw. Here, in this sacred space of warmth and water, withdrawal becomes its own form of wisdom. The body, so often ignored in favor of the mind's pursuits, finally receives the attention it deserves. Around him, other figures move like shadows through the mist, their voices hushed, their movements slow and deliberate. There is something about this place, this ritual of cleansing and renewal, that strips away pretense, that reduces all human beings to their essential nature. Senator or slave, philosopher or merchant, all are equal here, in the democracy of steam and silence. The heat penetrates deeper now, drawing tension from places where it is hidden, coaxing tight shoulders to soften, encouraging the breath to deepen and slow. Seneca closes his eyes, and in the darkness behind his lids, he finds another kind of seeing, another way of knowing. This too is philosophy. This tending to the body that serves the spirit, this acknowledgement that wisdom includes understanding our own needs for rest, for warmth, for the simple pleasure of being held by heated stone and gentle steam. The Stoics speak often of virtue, but virtue itself requires a foundation, a strength that comes not from endless striving, but from knowing when to pause, when to receive, when to allow ourselves to be restored. The water calls to him, its surface disturbed only by the gentlest of movements, by the careful entry of those who understand that this is not a place for vigor, but for surrender. Seneca slides into the warm embrace, feeling the liquid heat surround him like the most perfect argument, like truth itself made tangible. Here, floating in this ancient ritual of renewal, he remembers what it means to be human, to be more than mind alone, to be flesh and spirit intertwined, each requiring care, each deserving attention. The philosophers who neglect the body, who treat it as mere inconvenience, miss this fundamental truth that wisdom flows through every cell, that peace must be cultivated in muscle and bone as surely as in thought and intention. The steam continues its gentle dance, rising and swirling, carrying with it the day's accumulated worries, the night's lingering dreams, leaving behind only this moment, this warmth, this perfect suspension between earth and air, between effort and ease. Minutes pass, or perhaps hours. Time itself seems to dissolve in the caldarium's embrace, becoming as fluid as the water, as weightless as the steam. And in this dissolution, Seneca finds another teaching, another gift to offer those who would learn the art of living well. Self-care is not selfishness. Restoration is not retreat from virtue, but rather the foundation upon which all virtue rests. For how can we give to others what we have never learned to give ourselves? How can we offer peace if we have never known it in our own bodies, our own breath, our own being? The bathhouse holds him, as it has held countless others, in its ancient understanding that wisdom begins with coming home, to this moment, to this body, to this simple, perfect, necessary act of allowing ourselves to be renewed. The forum stillness, embracing the present. The early morning forum stretches before him in perfect stillness, columns rising like ancient prayers into the pale dawn sky, their shadows long and gentle across stones that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the dreams of countless souls, the eternal dance of human ambition and surrender. Seneca walks slowly through this sacred space, his footsteps echoing softly, each step a meditation, each breath a reminder that this moment, this very moment, is all we truly possess. The air is cool and clean, carrying whispers of eternity, and he feels the profound peace that comes, not from having conquered the world, but from having learned to be present within it. Here, in this place where senators once debated the fate of nations, where crowds once gathered to witness history, where power and glory played their endless games, there is now only silence, only the gentle touch of morning light, only the timeless wisdom that all things pass, and in their passing reveal what truly endures. He thinks of the years ahead, the challenges that await, the storms that will test every principle he holds dear, and yet there is no fear, no resistance, only a deep, abiding trust in the present moment's capacity to hold whatever comes, to transform whatever arrives into opportunity for wisdom, for growth, for grace. The marble columns stand as witnesses to this ancient understanding that preparation for life's difficulties begins not with armor, not with strategy, not with the accumulation of power or wealth, but with this simple, revolutionary act of being fully here, fully present, fully alive to what is. Each stone beneath his feet has been shaped by countless footsteps, worn smooth by the passage of time, and yet remains solid, enduring, beautiful in its weathered wisdom. Like the human heart, that learns to find strength, not in resistance to life's storms, but in flowing with them, bending without breaking, remaining rooted, while allowing the surface to change. The Forum holds its breath in this sacred hour when night surrenders to day, when darkness gives way to light, when the eternal cycle of ending and beginning plays out once more in perfect, natural rhythm. And in this rhythm, Seneca finds the deepest teaching that peace is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of acceptance, the presence of trust, the presence of love, for this magnificent, mysterious, ever-changing dance we call existence. As the sun climbs higher, painting the ancient stones in shades of gold and amber, he feels the generations, all the seekers who have walked this path, all the souls who have discovered that true philosophy, true wisdom, true peace lives not in the mind's understanding, but in the heart's surrender to the perfect, unfolding, present moment. The morning breeze carries the scent of distant gardens, the sound of awakening birds, the promise of another day, another opportunity to practice presence, to choose peace, to remember that we are not here to control the storm, but to find our center within it, to discover that the eye of every hurricane is perfectly, beautifully, eternally still. And so, as the Forum fills slowly with the gentle sounds of a world awakening, Seneca stands in gratitude for this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this simple, profound, life-changing recognition that everything we need to meet whatever comes is already here, already present, already perfect in the infinite, tender, eternal now.